Hello everyone and welcome to this AURADIN masterclass where we will go through every single interaction that I could think of that is connected to the Holy Light Aura and Dawnfire build archetypes. This video is focusing on the interactions and why things work the way they do, all of the niche things that you wouldn't really know from just looking at the tooltip. And if you are curious about how to actually set up your AURADIN, you can look at our AURADIN endgame guide over at Maxroll. The footage running in the background right now is me piloting that build on my character to the best of my ability. I haven't played AURADIN before, but I kind of just threw the push variant together and then went into a pit 120 and I cleared it with a couple of minutes to spare. So basically, if you're curious about the build itself, I will reference that build guide and I will go through how it functions and some of the choices made. But most of this video is just going to talk about how AURADIN actually functions and why people are making certain choices. First of all, we have to understand what deals damage in this kit. Basically, you have this aura called Holy Light Aura, which will make you emanate damage from you and your allies. So if I put this on my bar right now and I go close to this training dummy, we can see that I do 3 hits every 2 seconds. If I select the enhanced Holy Light node, this is now going to hit 5 times every 2 seconds, and this will spread out on nearby enemies as well, but it will always do 5 hits per 2 seconds, and that's kind of important to know. The Holy Light Aura does state that you and your allies emanate this Holy Light damage thing. So basically, for every target that you add in your party or every minion that you have, you are gaining 5 hits every 2 seconds. So if you have a mercenary and 2 wolves from the set rune, you will now do 20 hits every 2 seconds. It just basically scales 5 hits per target, nothing more complicated than that. This damage is scaling with all of your normal stuff. It's a normal scale, but it also has a flat scaling with attack speed. So if I go over here and I equip my Ring of Starless Skies and I don't gain any stacks, it's just going to be the attack speed that I'm getting from this. You can see that I do 1635 damage or 1000 damage. If I remove the ring again, you can see that it dips down to 1300, 1000 damage. It's very clearly scaling with attack speed. In my setup right now, in this testing setup, I have some stuff that doesn't impact this test, but I don't have Preacher enabled because basically I just want to show you how Holy Light Aura is actually scaling its damage with attack speed even without this node. This node just makes it more powerful, but that's for the build guide later. So that's the bread and butter of this build. You're dealing damage with your Holy Light Aura. The more minions and friends you have in your party, the more damage you're going to deal with this. There is another thing though that sort of works weirdly and requires some extra attention, and that's the Dawnfire gloves. If I equip these Dawnfire gloves, it will now change my damage passive. So instead of me doing 5 hits per second from me, I have this fire aura around me. If enemies are stepping into this fire aura, they will start to take damage, and they will take damage once every second. So for every enemy that is around me, I'm dealing damage once every second. It is very important to note though that there are very game-changing bugs when it comes to this aura. Normally, what we would expect from these gloves is that every time you're killing an enemy around you, the damage is increasing by 50%, and these stacks are additive to each other. So with 10 stacks, you deal 500% increased damage with your aura. That works as intended, from what I could tell, but there is another bug which makes this also increase in size. So it doesn't just deal damage in this circle, it deals damage way further out. In the footage you can see on the screen right now, this is me just showing this in practice, where I'm basically running around killing a bunch of enemies with the aura. You can see me dealing damage to targets that are way further away than this circle is looking visually. There's nothing on these gloves that suggests that the aura should be growing with these stacks, so this is likely a bug that will probably get fixed in a future patch. Another bug with this is that you are supposed to be trading the passive damage for this AoE aura around you with the fire circle, right? But if I'm summoning a minion, you can see that I'm dealing the passive hits again. If you slow down the footage and check how many times per 2 seconds that I'm hitting with this passive damage, you can see that I'm dealing 10 hits over 2 seconds, which shouldn't be the case. With one minion, I should be hitting 5 times over 2 seconds, because my damage is supposed to be this aura now. This is also a bug, and it makes Dawnfire gloves slightly better than what it should be, because you're always playing with minions or a mercenary, so this effect will always happen. If these two things are fixed, the Dawnfire gloves lose value overall. It doesn't become useless at all, but legendary choices actually become quite competitive depending on your playstyle and what you're doing. For instance, if you are dealing damage to enemies in this circle and this circle only, when you're speed farming, you're very likely not going to have enemies be exactly in this circle, so scaling your range damage might be a little bit better, but it's gonna be pretty close anyway. There might be some niche cases where legendary gloves is gonna be slightly better than Dawnfire, but until they fix this, these gloves are much better than what they say on the actual item. Another thing that people are confused about is what sort of damage scaling you're doing with your Dawnfire. The glove states that your Holy Light's passive is now fire damage instead of holy damage. And if we look at the damage here, I do 12.9 million whenever the double damage checks, and 6.459 million whenever it doesn't. If I equip a ring here with some fire damage on it, you can see that this damage has gone up. However, it is very important to note that when you have a minion out, this damage instead, you see I do about 5.9 million. That damage is actually holy damage. So you can see that I'm doing 6.2 million here when I'm not doing the double damage hits. So even though the Dawnfire damage itself is fire, your actual Holy Light aura is still holy. So all of your minions and your mercenary and everything will still deal holy damage instead of fire damage. This is kind of awkward because it makes you deal double damage scaling, but basically just focus on generic scaling if you can. Both Dawnfire and the Holy Light aura do scale with attack speed as well, and just showing that real quick, the Dawnfire damage here is dealing 12.9 million when I crit, and I deal double damage. And if I equip this attack speed ring, you can see I'm doing 16.2 million, so it definitely does scale with the attack speed. Another important thing is that even though it doesn't say that it does, adding more ranks to this will increase the damage dealt by Dawnfire as well. So basically, Dawnfire still scales with ranks, so you want to have skill ranks on Sanctification if you can, and stuff like the Shaco Sanctification as well. Because Holy Light Aura and Dawnfire scale so well with attack speed, you want to have as many aura ranks as possible to also scale the amount of attack speed you get from Fanaticism Aura. This alone, if you're getting a lot of aura ranks, will give you like 80% attack speed in Cap 2, which is absolutely insane. And this is a very, very, very strong damage multiplier to your overall damage, because it scales both the Holy Light aura and Dawnfire damage, and it also gives you more damage from Preacher. Preacher is bugged. I've covered this in previous videos, but it basically gives you more damage than it should, because it includes like 100% base damage in its multiplier. So even if you have 0% attack speed, you still get a 65% multiplier from this. When it comes to the Paladin oaths and which ones to pick, there are two choices that you basically have to pick between. You could either go the Juggernaut route, which gives you a 60% damage multiplier, because this is kind of bug that works for everything. So as long as you're triggering this, then you will get a 60% damage multiplier. Or you could go the Judicator's Oath path, which means that every time you're judging an enemy, you're going to make them take 8% more damage, up until 80% until they die. The problem is, every single time a party member is hitting an enemy, this seems to be removed from the enemy completely. So if you're playing with friends or you're playing in a party, I recommend going the Juggernaut route, which is a slightly smaller multiplier, but it will not be removed by party members, whereas the Judicator's Oath is more damage if you're playing completely solo. The key passives also kind of play a part into this, where you could choose between having the Judgment Day one for more judgments and for the damage increase whenever you have consumed a judgment. Consuming a judgment means that it has detonated. Or you could go something like Coat of Arms if you just want a flat multiplier that doesn't require any conditions. In ideal circumstances, you want to have Judgment Day because it is a stronger multiplier, even though it says 90% on this. It's actually 139% when it's fully stacked. This is because the stacks are multiplicative to each other instead of additive to each other, and that's a bug that will be fixed at some point. Coat of Arms, it just gives you the damage it says on the tooltip. 105% increased damage is pretty good. Even when you have more armor and block chance, because my character is not completely equipped right now, it's a little bit higher. As I said before, the build I was playing in Pit is the push variant, and I just wanted to see how it felt to pilot. And honestly, it feels pretty good to pilot. You are playing a very standard setup with Air Petition and Shadowfall's Death because of the damage amplification they provide, but also because all the crit chance that you're getting from Air Petition. This build is kind of tough to get crit capped with, so having that 45% increase is very, very nice. You also want to go for a Dawnfire glove, ideally with Holy Light Aura dealing double damage, and a very high flat number on the unique effect, because that is basically the basis of your damage for it. Then is a standard Indomitable on your pants for castle scaling. Castle is a Paragon node that scales with armor. You want Wild Bolt on your boots just to pull enemies in and deal a little bit extra damage. It's very important that you have Faith per second on your gear because you want to be casting Shield Bash a lot in this setup. This setup is running the Juggernaut setup where you're basically using this to consume all of your resolve stacks to get the damage buff, but also to gain resolve stacks quicker. Griswold's Opus is really strong for this build. You can run Sundered Knight, which is a axe, but that axe has a lot of snapshotting issues, so I don't really recommend it if you're just getting started with this. When it comes to your shield, you want to be playing a legendary shield with the Holy Punishment aspect on it, or it doesn't really matter if you put Ascension on it, but the things you're looking out for here is cooldown reduction and damage reduction. The damage reduction GA plus Masterwork crit basically makes this a extremely durable choice. You can go Holy Light, Aura, Potency, GA, and Masterwork crit if you want a bit more damage at the cost of a little bit of DR. Holy Light, Aura, Potency works as a straight up multiplier for your Dawnfire damage and for your Holy Light, Aura damage, making it basically a 17.5% multiplier or a 22.5% multiplier if you have it both crit with GA and the Masterwork crit. Ring of Starless Skies is insane for this build. Not only does it give you a stacking damage buff when you're spending resources, but it also gives you faith cost reduction per stack, which is incredibly powerful, and a boatload of both attack speed and crit chance, which you want a lot of anyway in this build. When it comes to your ring, you can go cooldown reduction, strength, and max life for basically all scenarios, and then you can go something like life on hit or life per second. It's really up to you what you want to go. Having a life on hit roll on your gear basically makes you immortal, so it's pretty good to have. Here you also want to have the other ones. If you put Holy Punishment on your shield, you want to have Ascension. This is a very integral part of the general endgame Paladin loop, where you want to be casting any skill that grants you Arbiter form as soon as you can, as frequently as you can, because you want to stack this as quickly as possible. In this build, you can only really gain this from Arbiter of Justice, but you basically just cast this on cooldown to ramp the Ascension aspect as quickly as you can. When it comes to the amulet, there are a bunch of different passives you can have. You just slap on whatever passive you want. It's really good. You could also use something like attack speed on the amulet. If you don't have 100% from cap 1 yet, it's going to be pretty powerful as well. And then you can go Holy Light Aura Potency if you want to, depending on how much block chance you have. An important note for pit pushing is that to reach the highest pit tiers, you want to run the Imbiber glyph, and if you are running the Imbiber glyph, you want to have potion capacity on your pants. It looks like this. For every potion that you have on cooldown, you are dealing 5% more damage, and they are stacking additively to itself. So for me, this is a 50% damage multiplier, which is insanely powerful. But it's really shit to play, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. For anything that is not the extreme top-end pit pushing, do not run Imbiber. Save yourself the wrist pain, because this is supposed to be basically an AFK kill everything on screen build. But if you do want to run Imbiber, you can drop something like armor on these pants and you would be fine. You will lose a little bit of castle scaling, but the armor loss is nothing compared to having the extra potions for Imbiber. A very important note for the pushing setup in particular is that you can see we're running Money and Set rune together. The reason why we're running this combination is because our Shield Bash counts as a mobility skill, so casting 2 of these will spawn a wolf, and you want to have as many wolves as possible on your screen at any given time. I tested this version of playing AURADIN compared to the spam Blessed Hammers and have Judgment out AURADIN as well. I gotta say, I gotta give it to Shield Bash personally. It felt snappier to play and I wasn't as dependent on Judgment and that whole kind of worms. It also felt very consistent with the set rune, using basically just 2 shield bashes and you were good to go, but it is very, very good. If you want to squeeze out a little bit more damage, especially on AoE, instead of running Nago Vex, you could run something like Ahu Quacks and just get a bunch of extra damage on trash. But because of Shield Bite being kind of expensive to spam, you are gonna struggle to maintain casting that a lot for the wolves and having enough faith for your Quacks procs on single target. So it's a bit up to you. Nagovex is gonna be more damage on single target probably in cases where you don't have a lot of ads, whereas Quack is going to be more damage if you have a lot of ads, so you can restore your faith much quicker. If you're running the Aho Quacks route, I don't think the faith per second on your pants and your boots is going to be enough, so you might need to run Lucky Hit to restore faith on your ring, but that makes it a little bit more clunky because your Arbor of Justice is going to have a longer cooldown, so it kind of depends on how you enjoy to play this build. I tested the Aho Quacks and I kind of liked it. I haven't tested the Arbiter of Justice cooldown reduction yet. So for me, in my clear, it took a bit longer to ramp up my Ascension damage, but it felt pretty fine as well. So the TLDR, what are you looking out for when you're playing AURADIN? You want to have as much attack speed as possible. You want to have as many skill ranks as possible. You want to have as many minions and friends and party members as possible, because all of this scales your damage insanely well. So if you have a Necromancer buddy that you like to play with and they play minions, this is an excellent build to play with them. All of these small little minions will emanate the Holy Light aura damage onto the targets around you, which is absolutely insane. But the footage running in the background is me basically playing this build without any sanctification that increases my damage. I have a bit of GAs here and there from the sanctification, but basically I probably have like less than 20% damage from my sanctification, and it's very generic and simple ones to obtain. I just wanted to give you guys some sort of realistic expectation of what you can do with this build, especially if you haven't invested an arm and a leg just on this sanctification gamba. If you have insane gear, this can probably do up to 130 and above. But for mere mortals like myself, I guess, because I'm only Paragon level 2 for the fort and I don't have any sanctification, you can do 120 just fine at least. You can probably do higher if you're a bit more lucky with random sanctification and some other powerful items in this build. Do remember that the build guide over at Maxroll is going to be evergreen. We are updating it as soon as we find out new stuff, whereas this video might be outdated in a couple of weeks, depending on what changes happen to the game and if these things get bug fixed. So always reference the build guide if you want to. Of course, when it comes to interactions, this video is probably going to survive a few weeks at least, unless Blizzard randomly decides to fix all of these bugs that I mentioned in this video. But I will let the rest of the pit footage run in the background. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the comment section below. I will try to answer every question that you guys are posting. Just bear with me. I haven't played this build a whole lot. I've just basically tested how the interactions work. For now, guys, that will be all. I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.